And now, an ad from Dad.
All right, save money on car insurance when you bundle home and auto with Progressive. Can I take these off? All right. What is this? This looks good. Wow, that's well made. Where did you get this? I'm talking to you with the hair. Yeah, where did you get this? It's good stuff. That's solid. That's not veneer, that's solid stuff.
Progressive can't save you from becoming your parents, but we can save you money when you bundle home and auto. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company, affiliates, and other insurers. Discounts not available in all states or situations.
Welcome to Creating a Family. Talk about infertility and adoption. Today we're going to be talking about the role of emotions in treating infertility. I'm Dawn Davenport. I am the director of Creating a Family. We are the National Infertility and Adoption Education and Support nonprofit, and you can find us online at creatingafamily.org. One of the things we do here at Creating a Family is create resources and content for the patient community. One resource that I think you might really enjoy is a multimedia guide that we did on how to choose an infertility clinic. We included a lot of resources in there, questions to ask, opinions and comments from other infertility patients on what was important to them. We have Q&As with experts, and one of the best things we have in there, in my opinion, is a really thorough assessment of how to utilize the infertility clinic statistics. Not all statistics are equal, and we went through and with screenshots and screencasts captured how to walked you through how to assess the SART and CDC statistics on infertility clinic success rates. I think you will really enjoy it. To get to the multimedia guide, you can go to our website, creatingafamily.org. And once there, hover over the word resources and then click on eGuides, and you will find it right there. One of the things we also do at Creating a Family is this radio show. It is weekly, and we utilize the podcast model. That way you can listen whenever and wherever you want. It also means that you can subscribe to the podcast. And when you subscribe, you see each show will pop up in your phone or whatever device it is you're using, your tablet, your phone, or even your computer, that week's episode. Then you can make a decision whether to stream it, download it, or just discard it. It's a real handy way of knowing without you having to actively go to our page on either iTunes or wherever you're listening. We've got a guide now for how to subscribe, and you can find it on the radio page of our website, creatingafamily.org. We have sponsors and supporters who help us bring you this show. One of the underwriters for this show is Ferring Pharmaceutical. For women who have been undergoing fertility treatment and are still struggling to conceive, there are so many daily scenarios and interactions that take a toll on their emotions, which is the topic of today's show. There's a new app out called Ferticom. It was recently released, and it was developed by the guest on today's show, Dr. Domar, as well as Dr. Elizabeth Grill. It was designed specifically to help women address the many challenging emotional life situations that arise when you're struggling to conceive. It's based on a lot of the information you're going to be receiving on this show, cognitive behavioral and relaxation techniques, and they look through about, I think, something close to 500 different coping options that they're suggesting for over 50 specific situations that come up every single day for someone who is trying to conceive. To get more information about Ferticom, you can go to their website, which is ferticomapp.com. I'm going to spell it ferticomapp.com. At Creating a Family, we have a number of partners whose generosity allows us to bring you this show. It's not just their generosity also, though. It's because they believe in our mission of providing unbiased, medically accurate information to the patient community. When you support them, you support us, and I really would like for you, if you're having to choose an infertility service provider, be it a clinic or a surrogacy agency or an attorney or whomever, please consider looking at the professionals who support us. It says something that they believe in the mission of education enough to support the National Infertility Education and Support nonprofit. To find these professionals, you could go to our website. I've said it a couple of times. I'll say it once more, creatingafamily.org, and hover over the word infertility, and then click on Find a Professional. And they're listed there, and their websites, you can just click on their name, and it will take you directly to their website. And we would really appreciate it, you're doing that. Today we're going to be talking about the role of emotions in treating infertility. Our guest is Dr. Ali Domar. She was the one who developed the Ferticom app. She is also a leading expert in mind-body medicine, and she is the director of the Mind-Body Center for Women's Health at Boston IVF. She is also an assistant professor of obstetrics, gynecology, and reproductive biology at Harvard Medical School. Ali has been a great friend to this show. She has been on a number of times. This is a re-airing of a show we did 2 years ago. It was very good then, and it will be just as good, if not better, this time. Enjoy. Welcome back, Dr. Ali Domar, to Creating a Family.
Thank you so much.
Well, I have been a longtime fan of your work and your books, actually, as our audience well knows, because I do refer to your books not infrequently and to your research. That's certainly one of the reasons that we wanted you to be one of our 2 special guests for our 1 million listeners celebration. So thank you, actually, for helping us celebrate. Of the books you have, I've especially loved Be Happy Without Being Perfect and Healing Minds, Healthy Women. And for this interview, I reread Conquering Infertility, and I absolutely loved it. I appreciate your writing style, and I think I appreciate it because of its frankness combined with its overall warmth. So thank you for your books, and thank you especially as a research geek and as and Creating a Family tries to be the bridge between the research community and the patient community. And I have utilized your research frequently, and so I appreciate that as well. This book, Conquering Infertility, that is titled Conquering Infertility, but it's mostly about conquering the stress of infertility. So that begs the question, what role does stress play in getting pregnant in general and with IVF specifically? It seems like infertility is inherently stressful, isn't it? So are the infertile just screwed because they need to be unstressed in order to get pregnant, but they have an extremely stressful disease? I mean, how do we reconcile that?
Well, obviously IVF is somewhat stressful. So if stress eradicated the efficacy of IVF, no one would ever get pregnant. So there's not there's not a clear relationship. But in effect, it's a chicken and egg question because infertility causes stress, and stress probably contributes to infertility. So there's a reproductive epidemiologist, say that 10 times fast, at Ohio State named Courtney Lynch, and she's done some really interesting research on sort of garden variety couples who toss away the birth control, and then she tracks how long it takes them to get pregnant. And what she has found is the more stressed the woman is, the longer it takes them to get pregnant. So this is actually pretty cutting-edge research that shows that stress can at least delay conception. When you look at the infertility community, I like to focus a lot more on why infertility is so stressful so that people, experiencing infertility don't feel so bad if they're feeling anxious or depressed or angry, because in my mind, that's a totally normal reaction to infertility. So, and I can go into all the reasons why, but in general, the focus should be on why infertility, why women going through infertility have so much stress, and it's pretty obvious why that is. It's impossible to actually tease out whether or not stress per se impacts IVF rates, because your prognosis is going to influence both your chances of getting pregnant and your mood. So if you have, a 25-year-old, let's say who has blocked tubes, whose FSH is 2, when she starts her IVF cycle, she knows her prognosis is excellent. And so she's probably going to start the cycle feeling far less anxious and far less depressed because she knows she's
far more optimistic. Yeah.
Far more optimistic. And in all likelihood, she's going to get pregnant. Now, did she get pregnant because she was not anxious or depressed, or did she get pregnant because she's 25? But if you have a 42-year-old woman whose FSH is 20 if you assess her mood before an IVF cycle, she knows her chances are not great. And so there's a very good chance that she's going to be anxious and depressed before she even starts her IVF cycle. So if she doesn't get pregnant, did she not get pregnant because she was anxious or depressed, or did she not get pregnant because, she's 42 and her FSH is too high? So you really can never, unless we have people start an IVF cycle being completely blind to their prognosis, which is impossible, we're never going to actually know whether or not stress impacts treatment. Now, conversely, the only way to really tease out is let's just make the assumption that stress impacts outcome. And if you make that assumption, then if you help the woman learn ways to relieve stress, then she should increase her chances of getting pregnant. And that is true. A big meta-analysis came out at the end of January, which looked at 30-something studies where women going through infertility went through some kind of psychological intervention. And it was very clear that the women who went through an intervention had higher pregnancy rates, statistically significantly higher pregnancy rates.
Interesting. And you've mentioned 2 studies, and I will include, what I'd love to do is if you have these studies, if you can send them to me, and what we will do is we'll summarize them and put them up on we'll probably blog on it as well as putting it up on we have a research section, an infertility research section, and we focus on things that are directly of interest to patients, both of which you just mentioned. In fact, we'll probably combine them. I have heard of the one that just came out in January. So, yeah, if that's okay, I'll try to remind myself to send you an email asking for that. So what are some of the physical symptoms of stress? In other words, what should people be on the lookout for in order to know if their stress levels are getting too high, assuming that there's going to be some level of stress because of your diagnosis of being infertile? But how do we know, what are the physical symptoms to be on the lookout for?
Well, people can have physical symptoms, psychological symptoms, and what we call behavioral symptoms. But in terms of physical, the top 10 probably are insomnia, headaches, pain, back pain, fatigue, shortness of breath, palpitations, gastrointestinal symptoms, worse PMS, and it can make menstrual symptoms worse. So is that 10? I can't remember. But those
I don't know,
to be,
but that's good. Okay, so what about the psychologicals? Go ahead.
When women are stressed, we tend to get sad. When men are stressed, they tend to get angry. But I can tell you, when I'm really stressed out, I definitely could qualify for that B word. So I think that people are different in terms of how they respond to stress. I'm going to guess that every single one of your listeners has a pretty good sense of how they feel when they're stressed. The problem comes in that when we have these physical symptoms of stress, it's our body's way of saying to us, hey, you're pushing me too hard. You need to take better care of me. But what do we do if we have insomnia or if we have headaches or we have gastrointestinal, like stomach upset? We pop a pill. And so if you look at the top 10 symptoms of stress, which I just went through, and you look at the top 10 medicines that people take, either prescription or over-the-counter, they're almost exactly 100% correlated because we don't listen to our bodies. And so we have these symptoms, and you get a headache, and you stop and think, I wonder if I'm feeling really stressed. I wonder if I should take a walk or meditate or, talk to a friend. No, we take some acetaminophen or some ibuprofen or whatever to treat the symptom. But when we're doing that, we are not addressing the underlying cause.
Yeah, and I was sitting here thinking through some of the other common medications, proton pump inhibitors, things like that,
yep.
which would also fit directly into what you're saying. Before we get off of the symptom ones, you had mentioned behavioral symptoms as well, but you may have summed it up when you said that, turning into the B word. That may be the primary behavioral symptom that people might have as well. So, but before we leave talking about the symptoms, I think it's important that we should at least address when you should seek professional help, because stress can also lead into more serious conditions, depression and probably others as well. So what should we as a patient community be aware of from, at this point, we need to get help and we need to get it soon?
Well, as I said, I think when someone is feeling overwhelmed, I really trust people's gut instinct. When you're just not feeling great, it really is time to talk to someone. And the problem is very few people going through infertility ever seek out any sort of counseling or support or a group because they feel they can handle it themselves. And the fact is, as I mentioned earlier, the research shows that women who do some kind of intervention are significantly more likely to get pregnant. And so I truly feel that everybody, one thing that I've been sort of lobbying for, and I know that there's some centers around the country that do this, is every person or couple who are doing an IVF cycle should sit down with a mental health professional, not because you're crazy or because you're too stressed or whatever, but just simply to talk about, how are you doing, how are you coping, what's working for you, what's not working for you. This is what you can expect from this treatment cycle. And if you breeze through it and do great, no loss. But if you're really struggling or if the cycle doesn't work and you're feeling really sad or anxious, you've met somebody, you've connected with them, you can go talk to them about how hard this is. Because
I agree wholeheartedly.
Infertility is really hard. I published a paper about 20 years ago showing that women with infertility had the same level of anxiety and depression as did women with cancer, AIDS, or heart disease. And there have been several studies since then that have shown that women with infertility express the same distress as cancer patients. So, I think most people going through infertility keep on getting the message, oh, it's not that bad, suck it up, it's just, you're being ridiculous, when in fact the urge to procreate is the strongest instinct in the animal kingdom. And so, of course, if you can't get pregnant, you're going to be angry and depressed and anxious. It's a absolutely ridiculous assumption to think that people can handle this on their own because it's really hard. And men and women don't handle it the same way. And so here you have these happily married couples who then go through infertility and, the husband and wife aren't feeling the same way about it. And that causes a lot of stress. So I think everybody should check in with somebody, a mental health professional, just at once, just to have a reality check. I mean, half the time I'm saying to people, you know what, I think you're doing great. Like, I don't know if I can use the word here, so I won't, but infertility is really hard. And all the support you can get is something that you should try.
You want to say infertility sucks, and yes, we can say that.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Because, when I was writing the book, which is now called Conquering Infertility, we were, and I say discussing in quotes, we were really fighting over what to call the book. And I remember calling my editor, and I had one of these, inspiration, either in the middle of the night or in the shower, I don't remember. And I called her, and I said, I've come up with a great title for the book. And she said, what? And I said, Infertility Sucks. And there was a bit of a pause, and she goes, let's talk about your book tour. So and it's interesting. There actually is a book out there called Infertility Sucks. It's pretty funny.
I've done it. I think I've blogged with it. I have a blog with that title as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard. I mean, there are some people who do great, who just handle it really well, whose partner, and they handle it well, who have family support, who get, I'm not saying that everybody is brought down by infertility because I spend a lot of time telling people, wow, I think you're handling this really well. But if you're not handling it really well, it means one thing. It means you're a normal, healthy person because most people can't handle it.
Well, and handling it well doesn't mean you're not in pain. Right. It would be nice to say that we could, we could take away the pain. We can't. And one thing I was going to mention, one of the other reasons that people don't seek help or seek group support is that there are very few groups exist, and hence the beauty. I mean, if you're living in a major metropolitan area, and even then, quite frankly, not all of them, in fact, very many of them do not have it. I'd say the majority don't, but, in-person support. But herein comes the beauty of online support. There's been some really fascinating research published over the last 10 years about how effective online support groups can be. So it's not a one-size-fit-all. And the beauty of online support is that, number one, the 24/7 and the lack of, geographic restrictions, but also you may not know people in your immediate circle of friends currently going through infertility, but I guarantee there's a couple of million on them online, and you can connect with some of them. So I say that as somebody who runs a moderated peer-to-peer online support group, which let me give out that information. We welcome new members. It is an online support group. It is currently a closed group on Facebook. It's very supportive. We would love to have you join us, and you can find it at facebook.com/groups/creating a family, or you can just type in the words creating a family in the search box, and the group will pop up as well as our page, so you can like the group and like the page and join the group. It is a closed group, so you will have to click join, and we have to approve you before you will join, and we will make sure that you have some connection to the world of infertility or adoption. So anyway, just something to throw out then. We got a couple of questions. They're both, actually there are three of them, and they're quite long. But they all are around issues surrounding the holidays. That's particularly relevant because we are hard at work right now on a multimedia e-guide titled Surviving the Holidays Without a Child, a multimedia guide for those trying to conceive or adopt. So, and we start seeing a lot more chatter, and we get a lot more questions submitted to us this time of year, usually a little further. I suspect it happened now. But we did a survey because you were going to be on the show, we did a survey a number of years ago, like 2 years ago, I believe, on which holidays were the most stressful. And as you would imagine, Christmas and Hanukkah come very, very high to the top. But, in fact, I believe, I have to remember now, but surprisingly, Halloween is also a very stressful holiday for the infertile, or maybe not surprisingly to you, but surprising to others, and then Thanksgiving and Easter as well. So
I'm actually surprised. I'm surprised Mother's Day wasn't in the top.
I'm not looking at the survey right. I'm not looking at our results right now. It was. I believe Halloween might have been higher. I'm not 100% sure. So I tell you what, I will link to that survey in the blog tomorrow, so that we can, so that for people who are wondering, because I do find it, I found it really fascinating, and it made sense after I thought about it. It's very child-focused things. But let's stop for a moment and let's talk some about the holidays. Why are the holidays in general, particularly troublesome for the infertile?
Well, I think one is people tend to mark off time by, for example, Christmas. So I've had, so many patients say, oh, man, this is our second Christmas without a baby. We never thought we'd get to 2 Christmases and not have a baby. So I think that's one thing. Another is, these holidays focus on kids. I mean, I know that Christmas and Hanukkah are both supposed to have religious significance, but the fact is these holidays focus very much on children, as does Halloween. I mean, every 5 minutes your doorbell rings and there are a bunch of little, cute little witches and whatever.
Exactly, and Facebook is full of everybody posting pictures of their kids' costume and that type of stuff, yeah.
So, you have these holidays that are totally focused on children, and so the couple going through infertility just completely left out, and that's a constant reminder. And number 3, they're around family members who may not be very diplomatic. You get, Uncle Tony who have a couple beers with him, and he'll start saying, where are the babies? Or you have, your grandparents saying, or your parents saying, when are you going to make me a grandparent? And so I have a lot of my patients who don't want to go home for holidays. They don't want to deal with people asking them why they don't have kids. They don't want to be around their siblings who do have children. They don't want to be around pregnancy announcements, which I think is totally normal.
Yeah. All right, so, amen. Is it ever totally normal? So what are some tips for people to handle stress during the holidays? And then we'll talk about general handling. If there's anything in addition that's not specific to the holidays, we can talk about that too. But I suspect that handling stress, it doesn't necessarily change. You just need to be more proactive, perhaps during the holidays. So we've got the holiday season is soon upon us. Halloween rolls right into Thanksgiving, which rolls right into Hanukkah or Christmas, and so we are in the season. So what can people who are actively trying to conceive or are struggling with trying to conceive, or I will add adopt at this point as well, what can they do to handle, other than, book a ticket to Tahiti, which may not be a bad idea, for 2 months?
I've actually had a lot of patients book a ticket to something. I mean, I think
in fact, that is one that we should mention. Perhaps not for 2 months, however.
Well, I think that you need to sort of sit back and think, okay, what about this upcoming holiday bothers me? And so, for example, if being home and having little kids ringing your doorbell on Halloween is hard for you, then, I'm not kidding, put a bowl of candy on the front steps, put a sign that says, please take one, and go to the movies. I mean, you don't have to be home for Halloween, or turn off your light. I mean, we have a lot of people on our trick-or-treating route that aren't home. So you can do that. You can protect yourself. And, a year or two from now, when you're building your family, when you're pregnant or you've adopted, then you can hand out as much candy as you want. But there's nothing that says you can't take some time now to take care of yourself. I would say for Christmas or Hanukkah, if watching babies and kids open their presents is hard for you, then don't be there for the present opening. Do something as a couple in the morning and then join the family for a meal. You have to be self-protective. People who love you are going to understand that if you can't be there, if it's too much for you, you just can't be there. Or, I saw a patient yesterday who is a person in her life that she doesn't like at all, who's pregnant and being incredibly obnoxious about it. And I was having a baby shower this weekend. And I said to my patient, man, isn't it a shame that on Saturday morning you're going to wake up and you're going to have this terrible stomach bug? and she, she's not going to go. She's going to call and say, I'm really sorry, I can't get out of the bathroom. And you think a pregnant woman's going to want her nearby? Absolutely not. So there's nothing wrong with just protecting yourself. And, for this year, however long you're going through this journey. Or tell people, if you feel close to family and friends, and you can say, look, this is just too hard for me right now.
All right, so one suggestion is to take off and literally don't show up at Thanksgiving. Schedule a vacation at Thanksgiving, schedule a vacation, and for whatever your winter holiday is, if you have one. So just literally don't be there, and give yourself permission to do that. So that's one option. And I would add that when you are taking off and scheduling a vacation, treat yourself to something that is adult-oriented in the sense of, that once you, if you are successful, and hopefully you will be, and will someday have a family, do something that you're not going to be able to do with children. So
right.
It's something to doubly look forward to, take advantage of your childless status at this point. Don't go to Disney World or something.
No, there are a lot of resorts that are couples-only resorts, or go to R-rated movies, or go to restaurants that don't encourage kids. There are lots of places that couples can go.
Right. So one option for people who are struggling over the holidays is just to take off. Assuming
and
that?
Add, by the way, that if you're a single woman, there are other things that you can do. There are adult single cruises. There are lots of places. It's not just if you're a couple that you can take off. If you're a single woman going through infertility, there are places where you can go, or if you have a friend who's going through infertility, the two of you go off together somewhere. You don't have to be alone on the holiday.
Yeah, that's a very good point. So one option is to take off. What are some other things? Let's say that either you can't afford to take a vacation for every holiday, or for whatever reason that's not something you're. I will say that one of the cruelties, one of the many cruelties associated with, or one of the many things that makes infertility suck is trying to save money because they're paying out of pocket for their expenses. And so I had somebody. We have recommended this before about taking a vacation, and she sent an email, and I thought it was, or I left a comment on the blog, I can't remember which, but it was well pointed, and she said, that sounds all fine and good, but here's the reality. Every penny that we save is increasing our odds of getting pregnant, or if that's not successful, adopting. So,
you can do a staycation. You can do a staycation. You don't have to be with your family on these holidays. The two of you can come up with special things that are just the two of you. You can celebrate Christmas at home, the two of you. Start your own traditions. Go through each of your family traditions, choose the ones you like, and start the ones that you want to have. So you don't have to go someplace. You can stay home and, eat ice cream sundaes for breakfast if that's what you want to do.
Mm-hmm. Another option that I think really feels good to a lot of people is to choose that time to give back. If you are helping others in some way, it is harder to be self-focused and feel sorry for yourself. And I'm not in any way being critical, because I think that there's a time for feeling sorry for yourself, and infertility is certainly that time. But a lot of homeless shelters are actively seeking people to volunteer during that time. There's just a lot of things, soup kitchens, things like that are actually, it's a huge need for most of them to find people who can who volunteer over the holidays. So that's a thought.
And being with people less fortunate than you makes you feel better about yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And I felt bad saying that, because it seems like we should give for other reasons, but the truth is it takes your mind off yourself, and you do end up feeling better.
That's right. Yeah. Exactly.
It doesn't sound like that's a very altruistic way of putting it, but it's...
No, but there's a lot of research to show that people who volunteer feel much less anxious and depressed because they feel better about themselves.
Yeah, and I guarantee there are a lot of opportunities. It might be animal shelter. It might be just you find what is appealing to you, what you care about, and specifically set up time during the holiday season. And it gives you an excuse for bypassing some of the events that you don't want to go to. You can say, without lying, you can actually say, I'm busy. So let's say that all these ideas sound good, but yet you would be very sad if you didn't partake of the holidays with some of your family. So you want to be involved in some portion of the holidays. What then? You don't want to just either staycation or vacation the whole time away, or can't afford to. So what are some thoughts too about how to survive the family gathering aspect of the holidays?
Well, one is just to be aware that you can go take a nap, you can take a walk, you can get away from the chaos. The other is what I tell my patients is I want you to think about the things that people say to you that really bug you, and memorize some snappy comeback lines. Because I know for me, I was doing an event a couple weeks ago, and someone asked me a really very nasty question, or she responded in a very nasty way. And literally the next day, I thought, this is how I should have responded to her. Because I don't think on my feet, especially if someone's nasty to me. I'm usually caught way off guard, and I don't know how to handle it. But if you know the comments, so I'm actually going to another event in a few weeks, and the same person's going to be in the audience. I know that, and so I'm already memorizing some snappy comeback lines. So if she says, I know how to answer her that may, make me look a little more competent and assertive. But I think when you're going through infertility, you know what people say that bugs you. Like, when are the two of you going to, give me some grandchildren, or, whatever it is, and think of some snappy comeback lines. And the snappy comeback lines that you memorize can be informative. They can be, educational. They can be humorous, like, we're waiting to see how the dog turns out. Or they can sort of zap the person back. We're having so much fun practicing that, we haven't done it in every room yet. That'll shock Aunt Esther, and then that'll shut her up. So it depends on...
Go ahead.
I think it depends on who's asking the question and how the question's being asked. But I would memorize a variety of answers so that you always feel prepared.
And we can help with that. We had a contest a few years ago for exactly that, or maybe it was last year, snappy comeback lines to when are you going to have kids was the question that we asked. So we had a huge response, and I think there's 10 real answers, which kind of cover the gambit of polite to trying to put them in your place. But then we had so many really hilarious snarky ones that we did a separate one for snarky comebacks. Not that we're necessarily encouraging, although there are certainly some people, perhaps the person in your audience would have deserved one of the snarky ones. But I will link to these in the blog tomorrow. Both the real comebacks that you, as well as the snarky comebacks. So yes, having something in your back pocket that you can pull out to answer the questions, is immensely helpful. All right. So and then you also mentioned taking a break. You don't have to be, the kitchen needs to be clean, so, you might want to go in there and score brownie points, cleaning up the noontime meal so that you can go to bed early so that you don't have to clean up the evening meal, that type of thing. Or taking a walk with your husband or your mom if she's a supportive person. So yes, so taking a break. Any other thoughts for you're going to be around family or you're choosing to be around family? Snappy comebacks is one of them. Any other thoughts on how to handle that stress that is just inherent in these type of gatherings when you're infertile?
You can do preemptive work and basically send an email out to people who are going to be there, or ask your mom to do it, and to say, please don't ask us about our family building plans. I've actually had events like that where someone has emailed ahead of time saying, please don't talk about it, or please don't wear perfume or whatever. And I think that if you feel comfortable doing that, it's preventive, it's prophylactic. You're keeping people from asking you about it.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with being assertive and protecting yourself during this crisis.
And there's a difference between being assertive and being aggressive. And sometimes our audience, not our audience, I mean your audience, whoever you're sending the family members you're sending this to, might mistaken assertiveness for aggressiveness. But you don't need to do that. You don't have to play.
No, you don't need to be nasty. You don't need to say, and Esther, you're a B word for asking me this. I mean, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying simply be assertive. Just saying, this is a really hard time for us. We don't want to talk about it.
Yeah. That's yes, and just being honest with your struggles. But what about people who are hesitant to be honest? Is this a time they need to get over that? They need to. No.
I think
a lot of people have never told anyone in their family,
and that's okay. You know what? That's okay. There are a lot of people that have never told anybody in their family because they feel this is very private. They don't want to talk about it. I think you tend to see that a lot if it's male factor. That men don't want to talk about what's going on. And that's okay. If that's the decision that two of you have made and you're both comfortable with that, then, you can just sidestep the issue and say, say whatever you want. I don't think you owe an explanation to anybody. So if you don't want to tell people, you don't have to. And, the fact is, to tell or not to tell, it's like an age-old question. Do you tell your boss? Do you tell your friends? Do you tell your family? Because if you tell them, then you're leaving yourself open to comments and suggestions. And if you don't tell them, they wonder what the heck is wrong with you. And it's the same thing that my patients, when they get pregnant, say, do I tell before the end of the first trimester? And it's a tough call because if you tell and then you have a miscarriage, then you have to tell everybody you've had a miscarriage. On the other hand, if you don't tell and have a miscarriage, you need to then tell people you just miscarried. You'll catch them off guard, and you probably won't get the kind of support you need.
Or people don't tell anyone they've had a miscarriage, but then they don't have the community support for grieving. And there's something to say for, although you may not get it with a miscarriage, but assuming you would get that, there's something to say for letting people know that you are in pain and that you've experienced a loss.
Right.
It is. It's a real catch-22.
If you don't tell people you're pregnant, and then, by the way, I just miscarried, I don't think they're going to pull themselves together versus if they know you're pregnant and then you tell them you've miscarried. I think then it becomes much more real for them. I mean, I'm a believer, maybe because I'm a shrink, I'm a much more open person, but I, in fact, had a miscarriage of my second pregnancy. And I told everybody I was pregnant as soon as I found out, and then I had a miscarriage. And I was shocked, not only how much support I got, but how many of my friends told me they had had a miscarriage which I had not known before.
Mm-hmm. I think it's a real common reaction. And it's a common reaction with infertility as well. When people, I'm not saying everyone has this experience, but when people open up that they are not getting pregnant and they want to, I mean, even if they don't go into the specifics of their personality, many times they're surprised by the number of people who come forward and say, even your old Aunt Esther or whatever, about that they too, it took them a long time to get pregnant, or struggle with infertility, or went through IVF, or something like that. And it's I've seen that happen, and then you feel less alone. But as you say,
look at your family tree. You know, if there are any couples who never had kids, and it's more than 20 or 30 years ago, there's a very good chance they had infertility. I remember talking to my best friend from growing up, and like in mid-sentence, we were discussing some of our neighbors, and I thought, oh my gosh, those two couples never had kids. They must have had infertility. And as a kid, you don't think about this. But now, you know, you think, wait a minute. You know, they used to hang out with our neighbor kids all the time. They were probably craving some kind of connection with children. But, yeah, if aunts or uncles, you know, I remember my husband looked at his family tree, and he realized he had like 3 or 4 great aunts or uncles who never had kids. And I'm like, wow, you know, there was some infertility there.
Yeah. It's interesting, and we don't think about that. As you were saying that, I was mentally going through my family tree. Oh yeah. Yeah. Yes. And so the reality is there are going to be some people in our family who just aren't going to get it, or maybe. I mean, I can hope that is not the case, but chances are good in most families there are people who just don't get it. And other than just avoiding those people, and allowing those who do get it and are supportive to help run interference, any thoughts on how to deal with those people? Well,
I think one thing that people don't really think about is sibling rivalry never dies.
Yeah.
And so if a sibling has the first grandchild, you know, and they're feeling very competitive with you and very victorious and feel like to shove it in your face, I think that is something just you're going to have to figure your way around. I mean, I've seen it firsthand that a younger sibling has the first grandchild and is extremely insensitive to their older sibling going through infertility. And like, I had the first kid, you know. Mm-hmm. And, you know, is that nice behavior? Absolutely not. Is it appropriate? Absolutely not. Should the couple going through infertility feel extremely hurt and betrayed? Yes. Unfortunately, that's the way families are. And the fact is, you know, what can you do to protect yourself? Can you avoid family events? Can you see your parents separately from your siblings? However you need to work it. But people behave badly. People are competitive. People are insensitive. You know, a lot of people feel like infertility is not a big deal. And, you know, you can either educate or you can avoid.
Yeah, okay, that's good. So, yeah. And both are okay. And there's some people who avoidance is just simply going to be the preferred route. You know, another thing that you're a big believer in, and so am I, and that is self-care. Where does self-care come in particular during the holidays, and the stress of going through the holidays, desperately wanting a child and not having one?
Well, you need to sort of sit back again and think, what about the holidays really pushes my buttons? You know, don't go to the mall on Saturday at 2 o'clock in the afternoon because you're going to see a zillion kids sitting in line waiting to see Santa. Go shopping at 8 or 9 at night, you know, where you're not going to see children. If you have a lot of young kids to buy stuff for, don't walk into Babies R Us or Toys R Us. You know, go online, go to Amazon or Barnes & Noble or whatever and buy each kid a bunch of books that you liked when you were a kid. You know, avoid, you know, putting yourself through the pain of having to be in one of these baby stores. You know, again, if present opening is something that really bothers you, don't show up for present opening. Show up for the meal. You know, bring a bottle of wine. You know, do what it takes to help yourself through it. I can't tell somebody what pushes their buttons during the holidays. You need to think about what it is that bugs you and basically figure out an escape route. And it's not going to be forever. It's not like you're going to miss present opening for the next 50 years. You're going to miss present opening, you know, until you have a family of your own. And then you're going to dive in just like everybody else. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. One of the things you talk about in the book. Oh, hang on a minute. Let me. Before I do that, I need to mention another something that we're going to be talking about. If you have been touched and have been helped by Creating a Family, this show, or our one of our many, many resources that we have on our website, creatingafamily.org, or our online support community, or any of our online networks, we would ask that you make a donation to help support our organization. We are a nonprofit, and we rely on those people whom we've helped to keep us afloat and allow us to keeping on, so to speak. We're currently in the midst of an appeal in honor of our 1 million, reaching the 1 million listeners milestone for this show. We need help reaching the next 1 million, and we'd like for you to be a part of that. There, you can pay online via credit card, or you can mail us. We are a open opportunity. We'll take your money any way we can get it. So you can go to our website, creatingafamily.org. At the top, there's a tab for donate. Click on that, and it will take you to our donate page, and we will be most appreciative of that. Now, back to our interview with Dr. Allie Domar. We're talking about conquering infertility. One of the things that I was thankful to see that you covered in the book, Conquering Infertility, is the financial stress caused by infertility and its treatment. I think you referred to it as the business of infertility, which I like, because it is a necessary evil, but for many people, in fact, the majority of people, infertility treatment does create financial stress. Let's talk some about that and ways that people can handle the financial aspect and the business aspect and the stress caused by infertility associated with the financial and business aspects.
Well, there's an old saying amongst therapists that the top 3 reasons couples fight are money, sex, and kids. And infertility encompasses all 3. Especially, most couples going through infertility tend to be younger. They tend to be relatively newly married, and a lot of them don't have financial security. And, infertility treatment's expensive. It's very hard to walk into an IVF cycle knowing that could cost you $15,000, and it has maybe, a 35% chance of giving you a baby. And you may not agree about what treatment to have. You may not agree how many cycles to undergo. One of you may want to save for adoption or egg donation. So it can cause a lot of friction. And again, I'm not here to give plugs to mental health professionals, but I think if you're disagreeing about money, then you need to sit down with sort of an impartial third party to help you figure out what your plans are. I've seen lots of couples go into debt. And, I'm a big believer in, begging to parents. Go to your parents. Like, how much do you want to be grandparents? You need to pony up some money here. If either of your parents have any financial resources, then I don't see any reason why you can't ask them to help you out. I mean, most parents are highly motivated to become grandparents. I have a patient I'm still struggling with who has a very, very wealthy sibling. My patient can't afford to undergo treatment, and she's just feeling way too shy and hesitant to talk to her sibling about, getting her some money. And, in fact, the sibling is so well off, the money for a cycle won't touch this person. And yet my patient just feels too shy about doing it. And, it's very frustrating for me because, I would think most family members, if they have enormous resources, would not mind helping somebody out to have well-deserved medical treatment. But, you do have to be careful. We had a couple years ago who didn't have the money for a cycle and went to both sets of parents. Both sets of parents had resources, so either set of parents could pay for the cycle. So one set of parents refused, and the other set of parents gave the couple the money to do an IVF cycle. And, in fact, the cycle worked and they got pregnant. Well, lo and behold, the parents who had given the money maintained that they should have more contact with the baby than the other set of grandparents because they had paid for it. And so that was clearly an unforeseen complication. And, it was a little messy for a while.
Borrowing money is rife with unforeseen consequences. It's something to be very aware of. Let me put in a plug, too, I think that if you are asking for money from a family member, I think it really helps if you are already on a plan for saving money yourself. And we did a show last year with Dave Ramsey, the he has a program, and it's a really strong and a really well set up program for how you can get control of your finances, and in specific, how you can save money for something. And I'll remember to link to this in the blog as well. It's a great show, and even if you are going to be borrowing money and asking for money for family, it's a good program to think through, get control of your budget, and actively work towards savings, because if nothing else, it may up your odds of people wanting to lend you money.
Or, I wasn't even thinking about lending money. I was thinking about parents giving you money.
I meant when I said that, I thought about it. I don't mean lending you, but giving you money, right?
Because the last thing a couple needs if they get pregnant is to have to owe $15,000, because you know what, your expenses just go straight up once you have a baby. So
exactly.
And again, if your parents don't have resources, obviously it's not fair to ask them. But if your parents do have resources, then people are always hesitant to ask. But it's not like you're asking for money so you can go to Paris for the weekend. You're asking for medical treatment to increase your chances of building a family.
Mm-hmm. But you do need to be prepared for them not giving you the money and the impact that might have, because one of the things we don't always know. We assume that our parents have the resources, but we don't know if they feel like they do, or we don't know where they're at as far as their savings for their retirement and their financial security and stuff. And some people just don't believe in giving money. And so whatever reason, we have to be prepared to.
And I've had patients, in fact, in that situation where their parents were taking luxurious vacations and driving in beautiful cars. And then yet when my patients ask for money, the parents said, actually, we basically spend everything that comes in.
Yeah.
And, did that hurt my patient's feeling? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do I think that the parents could have spent their money in wiser ways? Yes. But it's the parents' money, and it's their decision.
Right. But that's hard. It is the parents' money, and it is their decision, but it's hard not to be hurt, and you've got to, think through. But I'm with you. I would certainly think that I guess you could take the approach that says if you don't ask, the answer is always no. So
right.
Yeah. So you are listening.
I've had patients get money from obscure places like their great aunt Esther. If you need money for treatment, make sure family members know, because people might have stuff squirreled away you don't know about.
That's true. And you can always, you just need to, as long as you know that the answer might be no, and you can consciously be proactive in trying to not let that affect your relationship. But your great aunt Esther might very well want to lend money to a worthy cause. And particularly if
give money, not lend money, give money.
Sorry. Yes, because you're right, we don't need the lending. Give money.
Right.
Give money to a worthy cause. You are listening to Creating a Family, and today we're talking with Dr. Allie Domar about conquering infertility. I'd like to take a moment to thank a few more of our gold sponsors and to remind you that it is through their very generous support that we could bring you this show and all the resources at Creating a Family. We have Fairfax Cryobank. Fairfax has been a leader in sperm donation for over 20 years and is dedicated to supplying updated, verified, and accurate medical and personal information on their donors. Only 1 in 200 applicants make it through the screening process to become a donor. We have the law offices of James Fletcher Thompson. They are a South Carolina firm committed to assisted reproductive law and adoption. They include providing gestational surrogacy matching program as well as legal services for independent surrogacy, egg donation, and embryo donation. And we have Nightlight Christian Adoptions. They are a pioneer in offering embryo donation and adoption services to clients throughout the world through their Snowflakes Embryo Adoption Program. They recently celebrated the birth of their 400th baby. Allie, a while back you had, I think it was a book or it might have been an article saying, I think the title was 6 Steps to Conquering Infertility. So what are the 6 steps to conquer infertility?
It was actually, I think it was 6 Steps to Increasing Fertility. It was a Harvard Medical book. The book came out so long ago. I think it was basically talking about there were probably 5 steps for male and female treatment, and the whole mind-body connection was the 6th step, and which was pretty impressive because the lead author of that book was Robert Barbieri. is the chairman of OBGYN at Brigham and Women's Hospital, which is one of the biggest Harvard teaching hospitals, and he's an infertility specialist, and he invited me to be one of the co-authors of the book. So it's pretty impressive that Harvard Medical School, recognized the mind-body connection.
Yeah, way back even as being a really crucial aspect of infertility treatment. You can't ignore the mind, and it goes back to, stress clearly hampers treatment outcomes. The fact is we know because psychological interventions are associated with significant increases in pregnancy rates. So I think everybody going through infertility should be doing something. Even if it's, doing yoga or taking mindful walks, they should be doing something to relieve their own stress. And while you're mentioning it, let's list some specific things people can do. You've just mentioned two of them: yoga, mindful walks. I'm not familiar with that. I can imagine what it is. Just a plain old walk, would that count? Or
no, not a plain old walk where you're listening to music or chatting with a friend. A mindful walk is in effect being mindful. What can you hear? What can you see? What can you feel? What can you smell? Follow the cadence of your feet. Follow the cadence of your breath. It's being in the moment. And the concept of mindfulness is, that we are very rarely in the here and now. We're either, obsessing or regretting over something in the past, or we're worrying about the future. And I think most people with infertility worry a lot about the future. Like, will I ever be happy if I don't have a biological child? Mm-hmm. So there are lots of things. One thing I wanted to mention, because you were saying that, I was saying mind-body programs are actually very effective in decreasing distress and increasing pregnancy rates. And you were saying that a lot of your listeners don't live in a big metropolitan area that offers mind-body programs.
No, I said in-person support groups, because I think more and more clinics are offering, well, I hope they are. Maybe I should, how many are offering mind-body? That would be a good question.
Not enough. I can tell you that, not enough. But I have a graduate student at the University of Vermont, and she basically took my mind-body program and created an online version of it. So if anybody is interested in participating, it's a randomized controlled study. We're recruiting right now. And so there's an email address. It's onlinemindbody@uvm.edu. So onlinemindbody, one word, @uvm.edu. And it's really interesting because I've been watching everybody who is enrolled in this study. And, people are doing well. You have a 50-50 chance of getting a free online mind-body program.
I will link to that, and Allie, something else, and we'll talk about this after the show. We can also help her recruit. We have a really extensive audience, and so we can we'll put it up on our site and then link to that, and might be able to help her recruit. So I'll talk to you later. I'll try to remember to talk to you later about that. Okay, wonderful. Okay, so we've got you're right. So online mind-body, that's fascinating. Many clinics, or some clinics, do have mind-body programs. Mm-hmm. Something to think about when choosing a clinic, I would add.
What I'm so glad you said that.
Yeah. What else? Yoga, yes. So what else can people do? Some of these would fall under self-care, and some of these would just fall into just good practices in general. So what else can people do along these lines?
I split it into physical approaches and psychological approaches. So physical are relaxation techniques, mini relaxation techniques, appropriate nutrition, and moderate exercise. I mean, literally taking a walk can probably decrease your stress more than anything you can do other than maybe IV Valium. And then psychologically, one thing we talk about is challenging automatic negative thought patterns. The I will never have a baby, or I'll never be happy unless I have a baby. Social support, emotional expression, self-nurturance, and combating perfectionism. Any of those things are going to help you feel better. I mean, the thing that breaks my heart is there's so many people out there going through infertility who don't avail themselves of all the resources out there. I mean, you look at what Resolve offers, on their website, there's tremendous numbers of resources. There's so much out there for people going through infertility, and most of them never avail themselves of anything. And they feel alone and afraid and miserable. And there's so much out there that can help them feel better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and to a certain extent, it's simply a matter of reaching out and availing yourself of it. And it's a smorgasbord that you can choose. Yeah, so you feel like this is not something, this specific technique is not something for me, but there may be another one that you should try, or that you would feel more open to trying.
Yeah, think of it as a buffet. You don't have to eat everything. Eat the stuff you like. So try the stuff you think will work for you.
And I would say that a great place to start is with the book, Conquering Infertility. It's by our guest, Dr. Alice Domar, as well as Alice Kelly, and co-authors. And so, much of what we talked about today is in there. I also really loved the book, Be Happy Without Being Perfect. It's not directly it's not directly specific only to infertility, but so much of the information there was, it would be just very relevant to that. And actually, you know what, I should link to, there was a show that it was a very popular show that we did with you a number of years ago, and it's Being Happy, I think the title is like Being Happy While Infertile. Or something along those lines, and it was an amazingly popular show, as you would imagine, and I will link to that in our blog tomorrow as well. I've said all these things I'm going to link to. Let's see if my notes and will help me. If not, you guys can go to the website and search and find that. And if you have enjoyed the show and you want to help us grow, do us a favor and rate this podcast on iTunes. We are the #1 show on iTunes for the topics of infertility and adoption, and we, by far, we are, and we would like to stay there. And the way iTunes knows whether to recommend us is through the rating system. It's a star rating system, although you can also leave a written comment. You can just go to iTunes and type in the words Creating a Family, and you can click on ratings there, or you can go to the radio page of our website and click on iTunes, and it will take you there. And that's creatingafamily.org/radio show. Don't forget, if you have been touched in some way, and if you've listened to this show, you have been touched in some way, leave us a comment and enter to win one of the 4 Amazon gift cards. That's to celebrate our 1 millionth listener celebration, or to celebrate reaching the milestone of 1 millionth listener. Thank you so much, Dr. Dowley. Dr. Dowley? What was that? Where'd that come from? Dr. Allie Domar, for being our guest today on Creating a Family. I am going to blog on one of the topics of this show tomorrow, so you can check it out, as well as all the things that we've mentioned that I'm going to be linking to that we talked about. To get more information about Dr. Domar, on all of her books, as well as on her cutting-edge mind-body program, you can go to her website, which is domarcenter.com. That's DOMARCENTER.com. And she's got lots of resources there for you. And thank you for joining us, and I will see you next week.
Hi, it's Jamie, Progressive's Employee of the Month, 2 months in a row. Leave a message at the... Hi, Jamie. It's me, Jamie. I just had a new idea for our song about the Name Your Price tool. So when it's like, tell us what you want to pay, hey, 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 and the trombone goes, blah, 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 and you say, we'll help you find coverage options to fit your budget. Then we just all do finger snaps while a choir goes, savings coming at ya, savings coming at ya. Yes? No? Maybe? Anyway, see your practice tonight. I got new lyrics for the rap break.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
Let's say you just bought a house. Bad news is, you're one step closer to becoming your parents. You'll proudly mow the lawn. Ask if anybody noticed you mowed the lawn. Tell people to stay off the lawn. Compare it to your neighbor's lawn. And complain about having to mow the lawn again. Good news is, it's easy to bundle home and auto through Progressive and save on your car insurance, which, of course, will go right into the lawn. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company, Affiliates, and other insurers. Discount not available in all states or situations.